You ever read an ancient text and get that feeling you're missing something? Like you can see the words, but you can't quite hear the music behind them. It happens to everyone. I mean, there's this massive gap of time, of culture between us and the people who first heard these things. But today, we're going to build a bridge across that gap. We're going to put together a kind of detective's toolkit designed to help us uncover what these texts actually meant to their original audience.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the problem head-on. Are we getting lost in translation? Then we'll learn a really crucial technique called the art of distancing. After that, we'll open up our investigator's toolkit, put it to the test with a real case file, and then finally we'll see if we can crack the case and find that original meaning.
All right, let's dive into our first section, lost in translation. This really gets to the heart of the matter. It's all about the challenge of trying to hear these ancient voices as clearly as they were first spoken. And this is the big question, isn't it? When we read, are we getting the same message they got? Or is it like listening to a radio station with a lot of static? Our modern world is the static, and it's scrambling the signal. The truth is, if we're not careful, we are absolutely missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
Think of it like this. Every ancient text really has two layers of meaning. There's what it meant then, for the people who first heard it and their world, and then there's what it might mean now, for us. But here's the key, the absolute rule number one. You always have to start with that first layer. Before we can ask what it means, we have to figure out what it meant.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we find out what it meant? Well, this brings us to a technique that might sound a little weird at first, the art of distancing. I know, it seems counterintuitive, right? To get closer to a text, you first have to step back from it. But believe me, this is the most important first step you can take.
Now, just to be clear, distancing doesn't mean being cold or detached, not at all. It's really about intellectual respect. It's about consciously taking off our 21st century glasses, setting aside all our cultural baggage, and trying to meet the text on its own turf in its own time.
And this quote just nails it. It's about humility. It's like when you visit someone's home and you take your shoes off at the door. It's a sign of respect. We have to do the same thing here. Enter their world, ready to see things from their point of view, not just our own.
So what does this look like in practice? Well, we start by asking historical questions, and we make sure to read these texts as human writings. This whole process helps us uncover three really critical clues: the historical background they were living in, the kind of writing we're dealing with, and, of course, the little details of the language they used.
Okay, so we've got the mindset right. Now we need the right tools for the job. And that brings us to our investigator's toolkit. So put on your detective hat, because these are the 9 essential tools you're going to need to start cracking cases. And here it is, the whole shebang. This 9-step toolkit is so thorough because each step gives us a totally different angle. We start by just talking to the text, asking it questions. Then we zoom out to look at the context. We do things like compare different translations, because hey, no single translation gets it perfect. And we have to figure out the writing type. Is this a poem, a letter, a history? All of that changes how you read it. When you put all these together, you make sure no stone is left unturned. All right, theory is one thing, but let's get our hands dirty. Let's open up our first case file, a short story, a parable about 2 guys who go to pray, taken from the Gospel of Luke. We're going to take our brand new toolkit and see what we can dig up.
So our investigation kicks off with step 1, have a dialogue with the text. We start simple. We just ask the most obvious question on the page, what's the deal with these 2 prayers? What's the real difference here?
At first glance, the difference is pretty stark. You've got the Pharisee, standing up, basically reading off his spiritual resume. Then you have the tax collector, who can't even look up to heaven, just beating his chest and begging for mercy. Now, for us, this is a no-brainer, right? Humility is good, pride is bad. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, the original audience would have seen this completely differently.
See, that first impression is just scratching the surface. If we stop there, we totally miss the punchline of the story. By grabbing a few more tools from our kit, we start to see why this little story would have been so shocking to the people who first heard it. So let's watch how the picture gets clear. We pull out the context tool and bam! We realize Jesus is telling this story to the exact kind of people who are confident in their own righteousness. He's holding up a mirror to them. Then we check the writing type. It's a parable. That means it's built to deliver one single knockout point. And then we zoom in on a key word, justified. Turns out that one word is the key that unlocks the whole thing.
So, we've stepped back.
We've used our tools, we've worked the case file. And that brings us to the grand finale, uncovering the original meaning. This is it. This is the payoff for all our detective work.
So, after all that digging, after going through all 9 tools in our kit, where do we end up? Well, all the clues we've gathered, they all point to one final critical step, Step 10.
And what is that final step? It's simply this: to state the original meaning. The entire point of the first 9 steps is to get us to this moment, where we can confidently say what this text meant to the people who first heard it. In the end, it's all about synthesis. We're gathering all our evidence, all our clues from our 9-step investigation, and we're boiling it down to a short summary. But crucially, it's not a summary of what it means to us. It's a summary of what it meant to them, to the people who first heard that story about those 2 men praying.
And that right there leads us to the final massive question. Okay, great. We've done all this work to figure out what a text meant. But that's only half the journey. The next step, the really challenging part, is to ask, how do we build a bridge from that ancient meaning to our world today and figure out what it means for us? And that, well, that's where the real adventure begins.